What a beautiful day, though, with the weather cooling down a little bit in Maryland. So, welcome. Welcome to another Medical Mondays with Dr. O. It's been nice here. Hot for most people in most places, but today is not too bad. So, I'm Dr. Toyin Okwesomi. I'm a family practitioner, HIV specialist, and I treat addictions. I also enjoy medical missions, health fairs, and just bridging health disparities, which is what led us to this forum where we talk about preventing things that could impair health and that could be a problem. So we started on mental health, depression, suicide, and racial disparities. And we have talked about so much in the mental health arena. Today, though, we'll be focusing on health, healing, culture, and spirituality. We'll be approaching this through our and your objective eyes. So, without belaboring things, I'm going to call on our very own Dr. Nelson Aluya, who is a leader, I repeat, a leader in all fronts, a man whose heart beats for people, a man who is a man of his kind. We are blessed. We are so honored to have Dr. Aluya, but I'm going to have him introduce himself. Dr. Aluya, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for that great and wonderful introduction. Like they say back in Nigeria, Dr. O, you always know how to hype me, you know. Well, it's a pleasure to be here.
It's not a hike, it's the truth. Pardon my interruption.
Well, thank you. Again, it's a pleasure to be here, so we can talk about the issues that really concerns us. Like she said, Dr. Nelson Aluya, medicine and pediatrics trained, assistant professor at the New Jersey Medical School, former president of the New Jersey Medical Association, and former chair of the Nigerian American Physicians Association here in the States, and the president of NAPAC, the Nigerian American Public Affairs Committee. So I call myself a medical advocate because I advocate that we begin to pool our resources together in terms of policies and politics that would eventually go on to influence how we as a people behave with respect to economics, growth and development, health, and every other aspect that concerns us as a people, because only then can we truly develop and begin to be relevant, influential, and truly impactful in the present world that we live in. I mean, as Black folks of those of African descent, we have a right to be here. We have a right to dominate as well. We have a right to have our voices heard. And we have a right to live as peaceful and fruitful and well like everybody else. So just like you said, Dr. O, this forum we use to discuss issues that concerns us, to bring them into the forefront so that we will see where we are lacking and see where we need to upgrade, and as well where we need to reconcile the issues that concerns us as a people. Because before you begin to do anything else, you must want, what I had always said, have an internal reconciliation and strategy formation, where we as a people within, houses, like settling your home first before you go outside to do anything else. We must settle ourselves and settle our issues. And these issues are issues that concerns everybody who's Black, irrespective of where you're from, whether you're Jamaican Black, African American Black, Jewish Black, Caribbean Black, or African Black from Cameroon, Zambia, or wherever. We have common traits and common ancestry and common issues and concerns that we need to address in our community before we go on to address issues that others have impressed on us. So as we continue, I think today is the 8th series. We're talking about, health, spirituality, and all the things that come with it. Well, I will begin by saying this, that as we all know, life began in Africa, and anthropologically showed that, over 30,000 years ago or 50,000 years ago, some people say, everybody started migrating away from the mother continent, and until where we are, the individuals we have today. And there's the M gene, the PQR gene, and all the everything else that became, those who became Caucasians, and eventually those who became migrated to Australia and to the other areas, and eventually even to Southeast Asia. So, I mean, these are studies that were done and they're being put up, not by us as Black folks, but the same people who worked so hard to dispel some of the stories to really prove if they have a connection to the African continent or not, and they can't dispel that. But coming to where we are today and the topic we're talking about, it's on health, spirituality, and everything else that concerns that. But I must say this, in modern day narrative of how we define health, and even the WHO defining health, as we talked about before, not just the physical aspect of well-being and health, but also the mental aspect as well. So we as a people across the globe, humanity as a matter of fact, we're usually very esoteric. So it's usually spiritual in nature, and that's who we are. And we've always approached things in that manner. We often do that because we never understood, the workings and science of how things work. So, and that's why you have the god of thunder, the god of this. Even the Greeks had those names because they didn't understand how thunder worked, and everything else. So it wasn't truly different from where we as a people come from back home in Africa. It's the same. But in modern day times, we see those as folklores, and they've defined and modernized their whole story and all that, and now still remain the way it is. But we have a history. But like you always say, history is written by the conquerors. And our history has not been written, but thank God for what technology is doing right now. Our history will be told. We'll begin to dig in more to understand who we truly are and where we come from. Now, I've always said this, that the difference between us and everybody else is that our history and culture was truncated, and to a large extent, deliberately truncated. So while others moved on and evolved into what we have today, and that evolution was borrowed from different aspects, the science that you see today. Some were borrowed directly from Africa, from as others borrowed from Africa, the Arabians, the Chinese, and everybody else, and the Caucasians as civilization, moved on, and they borrowed all of this and made it into what it is today as we see. And I've always said, look, it's okay to be civilized. You don't have to be westernized. And they're two different things. We must understand that. So as we talk about health and spirituality and the topics that we're talking about, you can't begin to remove spirituality from who we are as a people, not just as a people of Black, but as humanity as itself. Because there's a strong lineage and connotation of your spiritual being and your emotional being that controls your physical being, period. There's no double talk about it. There's no science that can push onto any lever or stuff. I was watching something recently where they talked about, initially it was the Hubble who, that tried to read space and the cosmos and see what is there. Trying to look back as humanity where we come from. Now we're talking about the Weber, telescope. I say they're going to look. Somebody says it's looking into the eye of God because it looks way back, almost 300,000 years from the Big Bang theory, and that's what science is saying. But we've come here because man has worked hard to search and continue to search. And in Africa too, they did the same. We've had stories that we now know that they perform, craniotomy in Africa, even before, Europe was even developed, the herbs that we see today and the tablets that we see, the evolution of what it is from the traditional aspect of it, from the development of medicine, from what it has been today. But if you look way back, for those of us who did the history of medicine, if you look back, the Asclepius and Aristotle and all these older guys who did the research and treated people, they deal with herbs. And they were all looked at as concoctions way back in time as well, just like they did back in Africa. And those same herbs are still the same things that will work, and will begin to reevaluate them. And if you realize now that people are looking to go back to the herbal aspect of it and inculcate the herbal aspect into modern day medicine, I must say this, look, herbs and the things that we use to treat ailment or infirmities actually still come from herbs. But the difference is this: as man evolved and the population exploded, there's no way you can cut or grind as much as 50,000 kilotons of a herb that will eventually treat diabetes or treat cholera or treat something else. So man had to find other ways for it to be accessible. I mean, look at example, when the internet first came, even the cell phone, not everybody has cell phone, but today everybody has cell phone because it was democratized. So there was also the democratization of medicine that made it possible that you and I have access to the treatment that we have. I mean, if you look back in time, certain kinds of treatment were established only for the rich or for the nobles, both in Africa and both here in the Western world, as we see. But the difference now is the democratization of medicine that has led to a point where we have tablets that treat illness and ailment. Now, why do we have tablets? Because man had to look for a way to preserve those herbs that they initially started working on and preserve them in a small form that was mass produced, that can reach everybody. And that's where it is. So for me, when people talk about, oh, I don't like taking medicine, I don't like, listen, it's okay. Look, those things come from, the same elemental structures that those leaves that you believe in come from. You can do both, but above all, you have to recognize who you are first and foremost, get in tune with your body and your spirituality, because that actually controls who you are and eventually alter the way your body begins to reflect. As we know that emotion and spirituality, and the evidence of providence, actually creates a balance within the brain and the mind that eventually alters your DNA, how the DNA is expressed and how healthy you can be. So I'm sure a whole lot of people will talk about so many other things and will take questions. But one of the things we need to come to terms with as we begin to grapple between, oh, should I take Western medicine, or should I stick to traditional medicine, or should I stick to spiritual medicine? Look, first and foremost, be informed and see what fits you the most. Everybody's different, and no one peg fits all. You need to understand where you're coming from, what illness you have, seeking the right information that will help you address your illness or your ailment so that you get the definite, most appropriate treatment for that illness. And I'll rest here and I thank you. God bless.
Thank you so much. I have questions. I have one that I've been debating with you for a while that I want to ask, but I want to give the panelists, the time to bring in their own contributions so that I don't take time away from them before we go to the question and answer session. And if you have any questions, you raise your hand. I'm going to call on you right away. If you don't feel like asking yourself, please post it on the forum and I'll ask it. And feel free to do that anytime. So I'm going to call on our pastor and attorney and brother, Bamidele Onigbinde. Kindly unmute.
Good evening,
Welcome.
Dr. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming on. I think we have an amazing platform, and we have wonderful people who, they enlighten us in so many ways. And I think this is the reason why everybody keeps coming back. But I mean, the issue of health and spirituality is really an interesting issue because everyone will have, different perspectives on what is health and what is medicine. But the one thing that I believe is universal, no matter what our views are on health, is that everyone wants to be healthy. Some people actually still believe they want to be healthy. Why? At the same time, they still hope to be healthy even while they're doing things to their body that, eventually will not make them healthy. Now, God also wants us to be healthy. And now, the one thing that I have seen, particularly, in my own neck of woods, is this real lopsidedness to, what we think is spirituality, the spiritual approach to health. We believe that to be spiritual, we really need to eschew every medicine that anyone has made. I've heard people say, well, I don't go to doctors, God is my healer. If you've been a pastor like me, you listen to all that, and but it's amusing when we hear something like that, because I believe that everything that we have and everything that God has provided, from the simple water that we drink to everything else, that represent food, is actually God provided medicine. I mean, if you're thirsty and you don't do something about it, it's going to affect your body. Doctors here will tell you you're going to get dehydrated. And so, how do you quench your thirst? You need to drink water. I've had my doctor tell me you need to drink more water, and I said, oh, I don't have to go over the counter for that. I don't have to do, I don't need a prescription from my doctor for that. I can get spring water and drink a lot of water. That is no OTC, is no prescription, but it's God provided medicine. And so I think what I want to say straight away is the lack of balance, even among those who are approaching health with all their spirituality, thinking that, if you take anything, a medicine, if you take any prescription or whatever it is, or even vitamins, that actually nullifies, being healthy in a spiritual sense. But I want to share something that I find that actually makes us to understand why we need to bring a balance. Hezekiah was a king of Israel, and he fell ill, and God sent Isaiah the prophet to Hezekiah. And he told Ezekiel pretty much, set your house in order, you're going to die. And incidentally, Ezekiel had a boy. And Ezekiel began to pray, just say, Lord, remember all I did and all that. And God then sent the prophet back to the king and told him, you know what, tell him again he's not going to die. I'm going to extend his life. But it is interesting that when that was said by God to the prophet, and the prophet related that to the king, something else was also said. Something else was also done. And without wasting our time with the detail of it, 2 Kings chapter 20, the prophet delivered God's message to the king. And then in verse 7 of 2 Kings chapter 20, the Bible said, then Isaiah said, that's the prophet, take a lump of figs. And so they took and laid it on the boy, and the king recovered. Now, I mean, if somebody might say, if you stop reading 2 Kings 20 verse 6, you just say, well, Ezekiel was spiritually healed, God divinely healed, Ezekiel, and, had nothing to do with anything else other than some divine healing. But it is really revealing that at the end of the day, and you can also see this account in, I think, Isaiah chapter 38, where there's a fuller account, of the king rejoicing over his healing. He prayed, and then they praised God. And in between the prayer for healing and the praise for, the healing that God sent, is what God did. Not just that God said to him, you're going to be healed, I'm extending your life, but also that God also, allowed the prophet to give something to the king that he applied physically to the boy that was going to kill him, and then he recovered for that. And so I think it's really important for us to understand that, and I have heard people who say, they are disappointed that, a pastor is taking vitamins and you should have, waited on divine healing and all that. And I tell them, listen, you can refuse to get healing when God had provided healing for you physically. When God sent Dr. Ho your way, you better believe it. That is God's way of healing you. When you meet Dr. Aluya and he tells you the right thing, that's God's way of healing you. Don't think it has to be somebody dropping something from the sky and then you say, oh, I was, God is sovereign in healing us. And what we really need to understand is that God wants us to be balanced. And so when people say, oh, I want divine healing and all that, I say, listen, God will welcome you home if you die prematurely. If you're supposed to get fixed to lay upon your boy, and you just say, no, I'm just going to, and then you die, then God will say, well, welcome home. The work will continue on earth with people who are more balanced than you. And so I pray we'll see how, I think we'll see how many more views to lay on this, but I want us to understand that God's view of healing and health is, more balanced than what many people think. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. And I'm smiling because it's very interesting and really sad also that when you see spirituality, a lot of people are not interested in hearing of things that are spiritual in our days of today. You can judge that even by the attendance today. And I notice that every time we do this. But the more we continue, the more we'll be able to, have the opportunity to share the greatness and the goodness of God. Thank you so much, Pastor, for that perspective. As you were talking, I was thinking of our body also being the temple of God, and it must not be defiled. Any disease entity, things that that trouble the body, destroys the temple, and it should not be allowed. Again, I'm going to hold my question. I want all the panelists or my comments also even, to have the panelists contribute. So I'm going to call on Prof. Baba. Prof. Baba-Singhri. There you are.
Yes, I apologize for my being late. Anyway, I don't know if there's something to add, but when Reverend Bamidele was talking, I think it reminds me of, I was a Bible school, scholar of Bible a little bit, about Jesus, taking something to eat because he had a stomach ache. I don't know whether I'm correct or not. Bamidele can correct me. But in any way, for social science, we look at all this from what we call evolutionary psychology perspective. The fact that, healing with herbs and other things, even with soil, there's a certain type of soil that people use to cure disease. So it's not something that one way we call it spiritual, but the other thing we call it more like a kind of a natural knowledge, or knowledge that actually God might have implanted. I don't want to say it did, but it might have implanted in human being to point us to the direction of some of these plants that can actually help. Just like I think God might have given the Europeans, put that way, the knowledge to kind of do everything from scientific to modern scientific perspective, and kind of putting the chemistry, the biology, and everything, and then creating a medication. So there's not much difference. Again, it's just like sometimes lack of education is one of the reasons that people are saying, well, I just want to be healed naturally. It is also the misinterpretation of some of the religious verses that create the idea that I don't want my children to, or I don't want to take medicine because it's this. I remember, I think I lost my brother this year, and he was taking, when I spoke with him, when he was taking the traditional medicine, actually it was working, but then the people start saying, well, the traditional medicine is just blah, 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 blah. So they remove him from that one and then started giving him the modern medicine. He didn't, because he had to try the modern medicine, it just didn't work. So at the end, God called him. God had the last word for him, and I said, okay. Anyway, so this is the thing. I think Dr. Aluya, I just came late, but there are some different things that can work for different people, and sometimes the traditional one works for other people. Sometimes it works for the modern European, I'll call it, modern European medicine works for other people. So maybe we should, the problem is not that, it's more of what we call civic education into making people understand that there's not one thing that works. And two, also, I think we encourage the medical doctors also to maybe not discourage people from taking the traditional one if they think that the modern one is not working. Because because as I said, remember in most of this modern medicine actually are primarily discovered from herbs, by what we call medical anthropologists, a branch of social scientists who go to all these places in South America, Africa, and everything. And then they see the natives using it and working, and then they kind of collect and bring it to their lab, study in a different way. I was chatting with a professor at Ahmadu University. this is one of her areas. She's trying to look at all the herbal medicine, how it works with that thing, and how they can now start using it. You know, she's a professor of pharmacology. So what I'm saying that it is a matter of education. I'll show you something. I don't know whether some of you have seen. How many of you? This is not weed, so don't panic. Don't panic. How many people have seen this one? If you can see me. Can you see me?
Yes, we see the green plant.
Okay, so yeah,
go ahead. That's mint.
Yeah,
we see it. So go ahead and make
okay.
it.
In Hausa we call it jogale. I don't know the name in English. It's Hausa call it jogale. I think maybe Aluya. I don't know if it's like kind of, but I live in the north. We call it jogale. Do you know the name in English? I don't know the name in English. But the story was that I think it helps in other areas. And the European guy went to our area. He started doing a test on it and then found out that it has some medicinal purpose. So he was able to bring it and started producing it chemical in the lab, and now they are able to sell it. So that's what I'm saying. The idea is that there's a natural medicine. I mean, all medicine that we see, the process is like the idea that we say that Africans have the raw materials, and then the Europeans go and get those raw materials and then take it to Europe, then process it, and then take it back and sell it to us, right? That's the same thing here.
It's moringa leaves.
Huh?
Moringa.
Moringa, okay,
Yeah.
Yes.
I got the tea here.
Thank you. So it is the same thing that we talk in the social science, the whole idea of modernization of things. The Europeans were able to modernize it, but the raw materials is always in Africa. And that's what we look at medicine. We have all the medicine that I think, except we may not have the cure. I think I remember in the 80s or 90s that one of the Nigerian leaders was assembling all traditional medicinal people to find a way to put the knowledge there and then mix them with modern medical scientists to create things. So we can continue on that line. And I think, and if we actually continue that's to me, I look at it from a sociological perspective, the independence of Africa, that we can make ourselves independent, create our own medicine, use everything we have locally, process it in the lab, and then become a little bit more, less dependent and more independent. Because the coronavirus vaccine, as we know, kind of exposed Africa a lot into the idea that, well, we were waiting for the Europeans to give us some whatever they had left. And so actually in that sense, we have some group of scientists that I'm working with that started the idea of creating their own African-based viruses. So again, not to go around, but the idea is that medicine, either modern medicine, is actually a finished product of the natural, what I call it, natural medicine. And that idea comes from what I call evolutionary psychology, where our forefathers used it and the new European processed it and then sell it to us. So we need more education on both the community and the medical personnel to look at both possibilities and say, let's try and let's get healed. That's the most important thing, is healing and the health. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that perspective. I'm going to bring on Dr. Veronica Ufegbune. We missed her last week.
It's so good to be back. Sorry, I had other things, so much happening. Dr. O, I can tell you again and again that this platform you created, we need to replicate it. Because this topic is exactly the kind of platform we need to reach everyone. I don't know how you're going to double yourself, but we should do fundraising to kind of make a clone of you. This is a very, and you can see how it just keeps going. So thank you for this platform. This conversation is way overdue. And I want to thank the panel, the distinguished panel. Thank you so much. I really have been listening and was a little multitasking. I also want to take a quick second to say congratulations to able Mr. President, Dr. Nelson Aluya, for being the CMO of a great health organization. So everybody, please emoji him and thank. Congratulations.
Please unmute and just clap for him, please. You can unmute and clap.
Congratulations, Dr. Aluya.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, well deserved. The world needs your voice and expertise. And Dr. O again, love ya. So, thank you everyone ahead. Generally, I just want to kind of touch on this. I agree with all the perspective of the earlier speakers. Generally, many studies have shown this topic, that religious involvement and spirituality are associated, which is why people do it, better health outcomes, greater longevity, coping skills, health-related quality of life. Even during terminal illness, people resort to religious or spiritual healing. Less anxiety, because something settles them, depression, and even people believe that it's prevented suicide and other ailments. That's why they go to it. That's why they believe in it so much. How is it so? How consistent is it? What is the religious understanding that causes the misconception, which I love what was said about, let's clarify the role of religion, the role of spiritual. They're actually somewhat interwoven, but somewhat parallel. How do we translate the measurable medical procedures to help others understand when you have to say, I'll keep my spiritual because it centers me. However, time for me to check into the hospital, see my doctor, listen to my doctor, and thank God. I love what Pastor Onigbinde said. God created religion and created spiritual and created them, allowed us to actually elevate what we have, the roots, the leaves, the stems, the oils, to become healing materials that now is measured and researched. So should it be one against the other? No. We need prayers. We need more prayers. We need fasting, if that's what your path is. But we need the extreme. For example, exorcism. So those are places where we need to start measuring where that's extreme, because then it's become deadly. Even in the news last week, everyone, hopefully, people that were following the news of the mother, uncle, and grandpa who actually murdered the child, the grandchild, his own child, her own child, from exorcism, which is extreme spiritual process to heal. So spiritualism and medical, they are all important, but where do we draw the line where we are harming ourselves by saying, I don't want to go medical because my personal belief says I don't go medical. But I love the fact that we as believers have to remember that actually God blessed us with medicine. And people will say, I don't want blood transfusion, but we in the religious or spiritual need to understand how a spiritual life is needed to come and kind of give us that foundation and the balance that you need to maybe meditate, or that you feel cleansing and you have to do that white fasting, or those spiritual Bibles give you that nurturing that you need. But when do I pick up the phone and set up an appointment with my doctor and consider some of the extreme medical procedures that would save that life for me, for my child, for my spouse, for my family? So there needs to be education around that. And the leaders who are people that people believe actually owe the community as a responsibility, a religious responsibility, an equity issue, and a moral, ethical responsibility to begin to understand when you say, we support you, you need to seek the modern medical process. And when we need to stay and do 10 Hail Marys and read the Bible, none should be given away because they fill our soul, they feed our soul. So religious beliefs can cause patients to forgo needed medical care, refuse life-saving procedures, stop necessary medication, choose faith instead of medicine. And it shouldn't be instead, it should be that you have your faith because it centers you and feeds your soul, and you go for the medicine. Should it be either or? No. While health practitioners need to learn to respect the decisions that patients make based on their religious beliefs and not become offended or feel rejected or feel like you're stupid, you're not. But we also have a moral and ethical obligation in the medical field to understand how we collaborate, how we learn each other, and how we serve the community. Because the religious, the spiritual, and the medical, we're serving the community, and we need to find a way to do what Dr. O is doing, create platforms, promos, education for religious ministers, and because people really believe what a religious minister says. So from your mouth comes the acceptance that I want you to save your life. God created that medical doctor. God gave them the brain, the research, and the funds, and the path, and created the Dr. Aluya as the Dr. O's in the world to help us medically. While you have the blend of Dr. O who also would feed you spiritually. They all are important. We need to find a way to communicate decisions that identify when we seek other medical systems that will be most viable for a situation. We need to ensure that the medical platform engage all on how the blend supports the patients, the community, such as, what we're doing today. And as well, I want to touch on the fact that traditional healing practices include not only medical substances of natural origin, but also magic, sorcery, charms, incantations, religious verses, spiritual methods, amulets, sacrifices, rituals, exorcism, invasive physical and mental torture. And for those who do it, it makes sense to them. But those are things we need to bring into conversations to help each other. Because we've seen the extreme where people actually went to a faraway place with their pastor and committed suicide because they want to go to heaven. So we have a moral, ethical obligation as spiritual leaders, religious leaders, to be responsible. And spiritual awareness may acknowledge a search for deeper meaning in life. Let's do that. When we're spiritually healthy, we feel more connected to not only a higher power, but to those around us. We support them. We have more clarity when it comes to making everyday choices for those who believe. Our actions become more consistent with our belief and values, and we find people of like minds. And we actually preach it because we feel good. So we need to feel as spiritual as well as seek medical help to ensure there's measurable substance and ways to help ourselves heal. For those who believe one does not cancel the other, the Western medicine and the other healing types we need the dialogue and collaboration to have equitable service to the patients and our community. And we must credit Africa and all these other parts of the world, for those in the medical field, research and so on, for medical innovations and materials that come from Africa and many other places, because it comes in a pill, but they never tell you that Viagra maybe came from substances in Nigeria, malaria that they got. So I think that as people become more educated, and even those that are educated need to be better educated about not completely condemning other ways, but understanding how we blend them so that people have a balance. And so that's my topic today, Dr. O and everyone, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Wow. Thank you so much. Well, you touched on a lot of things, and I'm sure, there'll be questions to follow. I sit in a place where I enjoy people coming and they need care. They need to get treated for a disease entity. A very common one is high blood pressure. And the first thing most Africans usually would ask me is there a natural thing I can take? Thank God, Dr. Aluya already spoke about that the medications we prescribe in the allopathic world, you see, doctors like me, like Dr. Aluya, we are allopaths, as opposed to naturopaths, like, Dr. Masha Gillum, Dr. Michael Ye, who have been on the platform, Dr. Mary. They are naturopaths, as opposed to us allopaths. Our drugs come from the soil too. And when you go to the grocery stores or health stores to go buy the supplements that people believe in as natural things, they buy them in pill forms, in capsule forms. It's similar to what we give, because they formulate these herbs into capsules and tablets using what we call fillers. It's the same fillers, similar fillers that we use in allopathic world. They will be different from pill to pill, even company to company, for the same medication when a brand name goes into generic. But fillers are what we use. So I think it's important for us to understand that. And as our speakers have said tonight, Pastor hit it right on the head. I would just, add that the Lord God Almighty is the only physician, but he uses tools like me who have a certificate that shows that I've gone to medical school, I've gone through the drill, and I was accorded this certification professing that I know some in diagnosing and treatment, to then use me to be able to assist, in some disease entities. It is important to note that taking medication does not affect anyone's religion. It doesn't matter which one you believe in. Taking medication when needed does not hinder you from attaining what you need to attain in your spirituality. It is important that we take care of ourselves. There are disease entities that actually need to be treated. And if they are not, then they create problems that then becomes challenging, that one cannot easily control or take care of anymore. There's a saying that you should eat your food as medicine. Otherwise, you would eat medicine as your food. A big reason why Dr. V is laughing hysterically, a big reason why we talk a lot about diet here. And I said that to now revert back to Dr. Nelson Aluya. We've been having a dialogue, him and I, on how we come to this country or go to Europe or places that are not where we were originally born in Africa, and then change our diet to conform one way or the other. And when I say that, I'm not talking about the hamburgers and cheeseburgers alone. I'm actually talking about things like quinoa also, that it's a grain that, naturopaths, lifestyle medicine, boarded physicians would talk about, that we should eat grains and stuff like that. Dr. Aluya has a different angle, that these things could actually be problematic. So, Dr. Aluya, I'm putting you on the spot to talk about that, because I think it's a very important subject for us to discuss. And please go in depth about this, because we've talked about certain disease entities that are not something that we usually encountered before in our African community, that are now rearing their ugly heads amongst our communities here overseas. And you attributed it to that change in diet. Can you expatiate on that, please?
Well, I'll take it this way, before I go truly into that. I mean, this is such a big topic, and it encompasses a whole lot, to the point where it touches almost every aspect of our life, really. The office again. So let me see if I can turn it on. All right, sorry. I should be out of the office. Maybe that's why. So, but
it's NAPAC.
Yeah, NAPAC.
NAPAC, Niger.
But you know how they say you are what you eat, and it's a fact. I had said earlier on that unfortunately our technology back home, unfortunately, as rudimentarily perceived by other people or the Western who came, was truncated, and everything else was truncated as well, from our religion to our culture, the medicine we use, the food we eat, and everything else. And even our psyche was truncated to a point where we now believe everything that is Western or white is better than everything else that we have. And it's such a shame, and I've written about this, that it's such a disservice to humanity to take a whole group of people or culture or race and deprive humanity of the talents and skills that that race offer the rest of the world, especially when that race is the beginning of culture and humanity in itself. It's such a disservice to humanity. But you know what? We'll excuse them because they did a whole lot of things in ignorance. Like the Bible says, I think I can't remember what quote now. In the time of ignorance, God winked. So I guess we're going to wink at those times. But unfortunately, the aftermath is still on till today, as we see presently everywhere. Now, coming to the food and our culture as what we see, I'll say it this way. One, when you move from Africa, you were born in Africa and moved here, there are certain diseases, in all sincerity, that you begin to inherit as you come here up to a certain age. Multiple sclerosis is one of them. To a point where if you are born in Africa and you move into a Western world, before age 15, you tend to inherit the propensity of those who were born in those countries, in the Western world. So let's say you come here when you are 13, 14, the chance of you having multiple sclerosis is just as high, as good as those who were born here as well. Now, but if you come after age 15, but that's just the study that we showed. If you come after age 15, the chances of you getting multiple sclerosis is just like those who lived in Africa. So basically, there's a tune as a point where things change. And what is multiple sclerosis? It's a disease, of autoimmune disease, that the body begins to fight itself to a point where it affects the nerves and the degenerative changes that take place in the nerve and begins to affect those individuals, from the eye and all to the legs and everything else. And to a large extent, people die as well. Now, we begin to wonder, why is it like that? Often when I have questions and I can't find them, I research, and if I can't, I'll wait. And the answer will always come back. I'll tell you this. I think about 10 years ago, I got an answer to that. And why is it possible? And you'll be shocked. A whole lot of people do not even understand why these things happen. But the answer is out there. You just have to tie up the knots. And that's why people who tie up the knots provide solutions and answers are some of the great minds who eventually go to win Nobel Prizes. It's just that they didn't invent anything. They just tagged it and found a direction and linked everything up. And that's basically what it is. So the question is this: why is it that we inherit certain diseases when we come to here at a certain age? It begins with our diet. Because if you look at our GI tract, the GI tract, somebody said, some people say it's as long as 3 miles long. If you stretch it out, that's from the mouth here to the rectum. It's about 3 miles long. All the intestine and all that. That's how long it is. And it's the largest organ, because people tend to forget the GI tract is an organ as well. It absorbs everything you put into it. As much as it is, it's lined up with nerves, it's lined up with arteries, it's lined up with veins, it lines up with a whole lot of things, including the autonomic system and lymph nodes. And then it's lined up with immune reaction stages that fight disease from you. And so that when you eat something that has an infection in it, there are areas in the GI tract that are called Peyer's patches. They go up to seize those infections and then process them and try to kill them. But if they can, they still push it on to the next level. Now, when you eat, it goes through the whole process. Now, 10 years ago, they did a research where they looked at the GI tract of individuals. Maybe I'll do a short picture so that you can see. They did a GI tract of individuals who are born in Africa, and they looked at the GI tract. I'll show. So can you see that? Oh. So you see the undulating area, because that's how the wall of the intestine looks like, so that the area of absorption is very, very high when you eat plant-based food, because that's what people in the continent eat. Now, when they looked at the GI tract of those who were born in the Western world, you can see the difference. The top one and the bottom one. The bottom one's a lot smoother, and the crevices that you have is not there. So the absorption is a little different. And that's because the immune reaction from the sugar and processed food that we eat here has done a whole lot of damage. And that's what they did. They did a biopsy in the GI tract. So, but the irony is this. They took 10 African Americans and 10 Africans, and then reversed the food. In 6 months, they checked it again and did a GI tract, a biopsy. And guess what? The African who was there at the top before and the African American who was at the bottom, 6 months after, change it was the opposite. So food that you eat alters a whole lot of things. It alters how your immune system reacts to your body. And like I said, you are what you eat, and everything begins from the stomach. So when we look at this, it therefore means that the immune reaction that we produce in our body that put a higher risk for autoimmune disease really begins in our GI tract, as a matter of fact. So all of those, and that's why when you come up to a certain age and you begin to eat, if you're over 15 and you've been eating certain food and the GI tract is set already, it doesn't change. So that's why it's so important. Again, when we talk about food is culture. And those who come here and eat the traditional food and all that, It's a cultural thing. Now, there are other cultures that are good. There are also cultures that are bad. Now, the essence of humanity as how we evolve is to choose those cultures that are good for you, that you retain, and then get away from those cultures that are bad, that we hold on to. One of the other questions, culture that affects us as a people, I'll tell you this, back in the days, they used to kill twins in Africa. And then guess what? It's not just in Africa, it was all over the world. You'd be shocked when you read stories all over. They killed twins because they didn't understand why a woman will have 2, 3 kids like the litter, a dog or whatever. So it just felt it wasn't good. So they killed them. But as we evolved and realized that, listen, it's only natural, we begin to move away from some of all those things and adopt to good things that will make us all live better. So I'm sure there are other questions that we'll take on as we move on. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Aluya. I actually have follow-ups, but I'm going to call on Dr. Ogunleye. Welcome, my darling sis.
Thank you very much. Dr. Aluya, I enjoyed everything you said. In fact, that's why when people say I should stop eating pomo and shaki, I just yimu at them, because this is food that I grew up eating. How can you now say I shouldn't eat it? Don't they know pomo is what's that way the stress skin set? What's in the column? Anyway, never mind me.
You know, there's a name for it in English. Is the skin of cow?
Yeah, but
it's called African delicacy. Finger licking.
Yeah, but it contains this thing that they put in facial creams for women to keep the wrinkles away. So
it's called bokoto.
But if we keep eating bokoto and pomo, we don't need their creams, right? Oh, and Dr. O, you were talking about naturopaths and what's the other one? The other word?
Allopaths.
Okay, and you said everything came from plants, and I agree with you. In fact, we came from plants too, because if a woman is pregnant and she stops eating, what happens to the child? The child dies. We all came from, the soil. However, sometimes Western medicine, they change the chemistry of these plants and mix them and remove some substances or add some substances that can end up affecting some of us that our GI tract is still very much intact, So
you pomo eaters.
I know, right? Some things that we overreact to pomo. Anyway, so that is the reason I think yes, we should take the Western medicine, even though they're from plants too, but we should take them with caution. And that's why we need doctors in our own community that will tell us the truth. Doctors like you, Dr. Aluya, Dr. V, and other doctors. I just don't have any Nigerian doctor in my community. So I have to go to these Oyinbo doctors, and they have not been kind to me, So please let me know if there's any doctors, Yoruba or Nigerian doctors in the high desert. Okay, I don't care what part of Nigeria, as long as they're Nigerians. I see a Kenyan dentist, but I need a female person who knows female stuff. All right, thank you very much for this forum.
Right, so Dr. Ogule, I'll tell you this.
Okay, I was going to stop that. You want to answer that?
Right, in as much as we can be, we can joke and smile and laugh and whatever, but look, data is everything. Data, trumps everything else. Again, just like you made an allusion to, look, studies have shown that you're most likely to do better if you are taken care of by somebody who looks like you, period. I mean, the data even goes back to the babies in the NICU, neonatology. See those preterm babies that were born? When they did the study for those babies who were born, who don't even know where they are yet, they're premature. But the studies show that when they were taken care of by those that looked like them, those outcomes of the baby were better than those who did not look like them. And that's how far it is. But they expanded it into other studies as well. And it's proved that. So there's nothing wrong in seeking somebody who looks like you, But the person who looks like you need to be competent as well. You don't have to look for somebody who looks like you, but then, don't really give a hoot about you. So in seeking your doctor, one, look, ask around. It's like you looking for your mechanic. You're like, please get me a good mechanic, or give me a good electrician, you understand? You ask around. Go on the internet, look at their profile, read what people write about them. If you're gonna eat in a restaurant, for God's sake, you do the scaling or whatever thing that you do just to look for that. We're talking about someone who's going to take care of you and your life and the outcome that you look like. So you need to research them. We live in a world where we do this and information is out there, and that's how we must approach this.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Aluya. I wanted to talk about the medications and the belief that prescriptions that people like us, allopaths, prescribe are manipulated. Not quite. That's why we talked about fillers. And Dr. Bill actually put on the forum that fillers are chelating agents. Some chelating agents support better active ingredient absorption than others. Now, all medications we prescribe have what we call the core ingredient. That core ingredient for what we prescribe, or what we prescribe, is regulated by the FDA. Every tablet or every capsule in what we prescribe has to be the same quantity, the same percentage of whatever it's in there for the core ingredient. And the person who first finds this medication that it treats something or cures something gets what is called the brand. So you have the brand and they have it for like 14 years. And after that, it can then become generic, meaning other companies can now start making the same medication, but at much cheaper rate. It's the same medication. The core ingredient has to be the same, must be exactly the same, but the chelating agents, that is the fillers, will be different. And that makes it the generic. So some people would tolerate the brand and not the generic, or vice versa. The core ingredient is what we need, remember, but the chelating factors may cause, tolerance or not in people. Whereas the other things we buy, the vitamins, I buy vitamin D also. My insurance companies don't cover the vitamin D, so I buy it over the counter. It is not regulated like the ones that we prescribe. So it's been said that you can buy a bottle of these vitamins, and one capsule or one tablet would have maybe 10% of the ingredient, the other one would have 50, the other one would have 100%, what have you. And guess what? You're taking capsules. You're taking them in capsules, you're taking them in tablets. They have to make them into the capsule or the tablet with the chelating agents. So you're still taking this, what you're talking about, what we mix together. Yes, the chelating agents, they are substances mixed together to make this thing gel together. So you're still taking them regardless. And I agree with you. You need to be with a competent provider. You need to be with, and somebody you're comfortable with. I agree with Dr. Aluya that you should, research, and, there are people that are not Africans, providers, clinicians that are not Africans that are excellent, and, vice versa. But, we all have to look for who we're comfortable with. I agree with you, and I'm going to help you look. Because you have to be comfortable and you have to trust and believe your provider for them to be effective for you. Otherwise, you'll be going, and when you don't believe or you don't trust the person you're saying, they're not going to be the best for you. Thank you so much for highlighting those points. They're very important. That's why we're here, so that we can learn. I'm not saying, though, that every medication we prescribe is great. Why do they have recalls? We start prescribing medications. In the research process, They work great. The side effects are not that bad. But then when it rolls out to the general population, they still follow these medications to see, are they still doing what they're supposed to do? Are there more things that are causing problem or not? And then when they find out that, oh my gosh, okay, this is not doing exactly what it's supposed to do or is causing more problems, they pull them out. Thank God for the body that regulates that, the FDA. But it's the medication that we prescribe that they do that for. Is the medication that the allopaths prescribe. Dr. Aluya, I see you want to say something.
Yes. So I'll tell you this. 100, 200 years from now, our great-grandchildren were like, what the heck were they people living like? Those were those guys were living in the dark ages. Just like we look at 100, 200 years back. If those of us who live now, if they say, let me transport you back to 200 years ago, you're like, hell no. You understand? And that's what our children, because why am I saying this? Science and technology, especially with COVID, has leapfrogged humanity 7 years ahead. That's what COVID has done. I mean, like I always say, out of every good thing, there are bad outcomes. And out of every bad thing, there are good outcomes. One of the good outcomes of COVID is that you and I can sit in our individual rooms right now and hear each other talk to one another. Because before this, we need to rent a room, rent a place, buy chairs, buy food, snacks for everybody to gather. And some people may not show up. But in the comfort of your home, you can do this. And that's what technology is doing. But that's what technology is doing again. And that's what technology has done for us to be here. When you talked about the feelers, look, I said something earlier on about the democratization of medicine. Initially, it was only for the selected few, the elite of the elite, that had access to all of this. Now, when somebody came up, brilliant, found a way to preserve those herbs and found a way to put it in a form where you can store it, that opened up everything else. Just like when the internet came on, just like when the printing press did to religion and knowledge of everything else. So when the technology came to preserve tablets or preserve medications, those herbs, I mean, like I said, can you imagine how many tons of herbs that will be broken and spread for us to be able to eat and then feel where we are today? No, but when they preserved it, somebody actually got, I think he won a Nobel Prize when he created a form upon which you can preserve medications that you swallow in a molecular form into those fillers that you eat, you swallow, and it slowly dissolves and goes into you and does what it should do. And that's a beautiful thing. That's opened up a whole level of where we are today. But I can tell you this, like Dr. O was just saying, everything is not meant for everybody. People react differently to different things. And I say this, some people will eat an egg and they're fine. And they eat eggs, they're fine. I eat an egg, I end up in the ICU. Does that mean eggs are bad? No, it's just bad for me. So what you need to do, understand your body. And I keep saying that, understand your body. Get in tune with your body. Know what your body feels like, what the rhythm of your body. And then get into the spiritual form of it, of your body. And then that's how you approach your healthcare provider as well. And in person, you have to be in tune with one another and understand one another. Because as at that point in time, he will sit with you and see the best medication that will suit you best. And you'll be able to open up and say, you know what, doc, I cannot take medications that have sulfur in it. So he'll make sure he doesn't give you Bactrim, even if he wants to treat your UTI. I cannot take medications that has eggs in it, or even shots that have eggs in them. That's how you begin to talk and discuss this. Now, why did I bring up the issue of science and technology? Because where we're going now is precision medicine. Whereas for those who are out there who have cholesterol, someone will write a cholesterol medicine for you. You don't even know which one they're writing. How the heck did the doctor choose whether it was Lipitor or Simvastatin or Crestor? You don't know. He just decided to choose that because he feels that's what it is. Other than the fact that the insurance company would decide, no, we're not going to pay for Crestor because it's still so expensive. You just take Zocor. You understand? But outside of that, how do we as physicians decide what medications that will treat a particular illness for you?
Research.
Well, no, but guess what? A blood pressure pill.
Yes.
How do I decide, oh, you know what? It's metoprolol or carvedilol or whatever.
Underlying issues. There are lots of things.
No, but I understand that. But in a class of medication, these are, like I said, statins. How do you choose which statin? Is it Lipitor? Is it Crestor? Is it Zocor? You understand?
I have the formula
of medication. But then guess what? This is the joy and the beauty. When I laughed and said 100 years, 200 years from now, our grandchildren will laugh at us. Like, how can you take medicine you don't even know how it was? Was it in tune with your DNA? That's what we're coming. Where we have AI, artificial intelligence, with blockchain technology, will decide how our DNA is coded to particular medication. So they'll run those analyses and say, you know what? When you take Lipitor, Lipitor is better for you who is from Ogoja as compared to somebody who is from South Carolina. You get what I mean? Based on the food you eat and everything. That's where we're heading to. And we must begin to see that. So precision medicine is huge. It's out there. They'll run, but not everybody know about it yet. But hopefully we'll get there and we'll all be safe. Thank you.
That's right. Thank you so much. And, you know, picking it up from precision medicine, Dr. Gunlaye, you opened a can of worms. We have something already. I've mentioned it on this forum called gene site testing. The gene site testing, we use a swab, just swab inside the cheek of a patient, send it out to the lab, and they use the DNA of that patient from that saliva to decide what medication will work best for things like depression, anxiety, psychosis, bipolar disorder, pain medications. We have that already. I use it routinely, and it's been a life changer for my patients. I want to say before I call Pastor Onigbinde that Dr. Gunlaye, you have transformed a sphere. You make your own suya. Before I got into Dr. Sandhu's plant-based program, I ordered your suya. It was the best.
Oh.
It is the best. Not what's the best. It is the best.
Thank you.
Before I got into plant-based diet. And Dr. Sandhu said, I cannot eat that alone. Oh my gosh, you need to be there at the first meeting. I tried to see if I can even get fish in. She said, no. You know, but the deal is this. You make your own suya. Remember back home, as Prof. Baba said, we have these herbs at home that is being used to treat different entities, disease entities. See, we don't know quantity. We don't know frequency that we should take them. But we take them and they resolve issues. The white man came, saw that this was beneficial, brought it back to the lab, analyzed it, see what was in it, and guess what? Turned it into a pill. Dr. Aluya had expatiated on that. Dr. Bill has, expatiated on the fact that the fillers is chelating agents and is the same core ingredient, but they put it in a form that is easier to take. And they research more to know how much should you take? How often should you take it? You see what I'm saying? You did the same thing with the suya. We eat meat, like the bokoto and all that you eat. That's how we ate it at home. But you know that we don't have time all the time to do this cooking here, and we still enjoy the suya meats that we cannot make ourselves here. If we want to, most of us can. And you have ingeniously made suya, packaged it, that it comes to any home, mint form. Can you please put in the forum your contact information? Because I'm sure some people would like that suya.
Thank you. I shall.
Do you see advancement from the meat we eat to the suya that you transformed it to? So technology is important. Let's embrace it and let's utilize it, especially when it has to do with our health. Please put your information on the forum. I'll be looking out for it. And you know what? I recommend that suya. It's excellent. Don't tell Dr. Sandu I did. Pastor Onigbinde, please unmute.
Yes, thank you, Dr. O. And I mean, I was just listening to Dr. Aluya about how when we look back 100 years before now, before this time, we will say, what the heck, and 100 years from now, people will look back and also say, what the heck, what are we doing in terms of how we take care of our health or the food that we eat. And it just kind of bring back some memories to me, because the one thing that we really need to thresh out is some paradoxes. What happened that people who have no exposure to high-tech clinics and hospitals, they live long. Our fathers, our grandfathers, our grandma. I mean, I used to go to the village, and my whole grandmother is still like, 90 years old and is still walking around. And when you look at their lifestyle, even without all of the, the civilization, all of the, the modernization, you see them waking up early and walking long distance to their farms. And when they have to eat, they eat fresh food, and maybe, a cup of maize from right there on the stalk, and then they eat up, burn it right there, and then heat it, and fresh vegetables and all of that, and they live long. I mean, I remember some of the time when they give birth to babies, baby die, and they call it a biku, and you can say, well, that is because of their ignorance or something, but there are things that are going well for them to make them to live longer. There are things that are not going well with us, or going well for us with all of our modernization and civilization, that make people with all of the exposure to everything, that makes them to even, they don't live long as even our own, grandfathers and grandmothers did. And I think about some of the underlying and some of the overlay of, our lifestyle and the things that we do that actually do not help all of the modernization and civilization and all the education. And it's really like, there's nothing you can do about it unless you pay attention to it. All the stress, all the not listening to our bodies. We think we can drive the horse, and at the end of the day, we have, we can be taken to ICU, once we call on 911, but at the end of the day, we don't really have what you can call a real good or better quality of life when you actually have to put it side by side with some of our grandfathers and grandmothers who didn't have all of that. And so when Dr. Aluya talked about what the heck, I mean, it's really like a paradox. We can actually look back and say, hey, these are some of the things that those people did that probably we have to do with all of our modernization. And because we don't, I mean, we're not sleeping well. We want wealth, and that is affecting health. And there are so much of this wholeness to it that, this whole, balance to it that is missing now with all of the civilization and modernization. Talking about physical exercise, it is, it's either we're not doing it or we think it's not going to allow us to make as much money as we want to. And so we are driving the horse, and we drive the horse to death. And even with all of the things that are available to us, and like Dr. Aluya talked about food, there are things that we are putting in our body that are not meant for the body. I mean, It's like when you put water in a gasoline car and you think it's going to drive. It's not going to drive. You know, there are things that, you know, some people don't want to drink water. I mean, I have somebody very close to me telling me of a work fellow who doesn't want to drink water. She has never, you know, drunk water, or she doesn't like to drink water, and now, you know, she was told you need to drink water, and then she drank water, and she had this episode, and then because she carries a whole box of you know, what's it called, Diet Coke, everything, and everybody knows this. And you drink Diet Coke, 3 Diet Cokes, and every day, and that is not something. It's like putting water in the gasoline tank, and you think the car is going to drive. And so, so in other words, I think this is a huge topic, and I don't think we can have a straight line to it. It's going to be kind of zigzag, because you have to pay attention to other issues that affect life, physical exercise, you know, the psychological state. You know, the Bible says a joyful heart is good medicine. A joyful heart is good medicine, but a broken spirit dried up the bones. In other words, we are finding something that affects, you know, the physical, and it's not even something you can see. And some people are not joyful, and then they, you know, you say, oh, why are you losing weight? What is wrong with you? It has nothing to do with what you are eating or what you are not eating. It's something is wrong with them psychologically. And so I think, you know, what I want to say is that we really need to, you know, look a little closer, and also pay, you know, more attention to some of these things that people are doing to themselves, that even with all of the exposure to Dr. Aluya's and Dr. Ho's, you know, without the self-control, without the removal of abuse from the use, you know, it's not going to work. I mean, you have a patient who say, well, I still want to drink Diet Coke, and you say, well, you know, you need to lose weight. What are you going to do? You know, you've set your whole lot, and then he goes home, and then he continues to do that. He's still going to die, or he's going to, you know, fall them to something. And so that is the reason why it's really important for us to, you know, pay attention to some other issues. And I believe everything that we have said is true, but there are other additional things that are, you know, affecting health that we really need to pay attention to. There's this story of a 19th century preacher, and his name is Robert Murray. He graduated from Edinburgh University at the age of 14 in 1827. And he started leading the Presbyterian congregation of over 1,000 members at the age of 23. At the age of 23. And then he worked so hard that his health finally broke. And then before dying at the age of 29, he wrote, God gave me a message to deliver and a horse to ride. Alas, I have killed the horse, and now I cannot deliver the message. And that speaks to a lot of people today, you know, killing the horse, and now we can't fulfill all the potentials that we could have fulfilled. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You know, you talked about our forefathers back home, how they were doing well and all. And I just can't help but say that you also tied it up together. When you said that it's all over the place, we'll go this way and that way. Pastor, you tied it together. Diet and stress are huge reasons why our society is the way it is today. Alleviating stress is very important, especially in our communities. We need to look into each other, into ourselves, and we need to look into each other to be each other's blind spots, to caution each other that take a break, rest. We go. We everywhere, stressing over this, stressing over that. I'll tell you, I had one of the hardest weekends I've ever had this last weekend. And I had one of the hardest clinics I've ever had today. It's been real. Real life is happening. And it's happening It's been real. Things just go on and on. And, you know, we have responsibilities we still need to take care of. We have to work on them. We have to have a sleep, what our sleep expert has taught us on this forum, to have a time that we go to bed, a time that we wake up. We have to have a time we eat, time we exercise, no matter what is going on. The diet we eat is important. I'm so glad you kept mentioning diet Coke. Some people stop drinking Coke and they start drinking diet Coke, or, you know, stop drinking the real thing. I tell them, drink the real thing because it has sugar in it. It's bad for you, but hey, go ahead and do that. Instead of the high fructose corn syrup and the sucrose and please don't quote me on these things. All these things that are in the diet Coke that are even worse than the regular thing. And it's better to just stay away from them anyway. So that being said, I'm going to call on Dr. Bill. You had your hand up and you have so many comments on the platform that I'll have you put it together. That saves me the task of having to read them. Thank you.
All that's been said by a pastor, by Dr. Aluya, it's really extraordinary. This topic, Dr. O, is extraordinary. It's huge. There are things that Dr. Aluya referred to in terms of the foods, how we moved from one continent to another continent and began eating the foods of the new continent, which our bodies were not used to, and created an inflammatory state, changed our entire GI tract. Of course, now we're starting to deal with that in particular. He also mentioned way back, or maybe in the future, that what will we say? We don't have to go back that far in the future or go forward that future. In the 60s, late 60s and early 70s, there was a diet that they gave people who had kidney disease. It was called the butterball diet, a diet of a ball wrapped in sugar, because they did not know what to feed people who had kidney disease. 60s and 70s, we're not that far away from that. The need to understand, know our bodies is just, I can't even stress how important that is. I can't have someone walk in the door and say, well, I know what your body is. If I don't know what my body is, how can I go to somebody and say, please help me at this point? We have stated so much about medications. I think either Dr. Aluya or you spoke to the fact that the white man has gone to our continent, saw that these herbs, these plants, these soils are so much of value. He's come back here and he's made them, and now he's selling them to us. The difference is that the item that they have created is not as friendly to our bodies, because truthfully, all medications have particular rotations. One speaks to the left, one speaks to the right. We want dextro. You mentioned vitamins. When you take a vitamin D, is it Levro or is it dextro? Dextro fits to our body. Levro is something against our body. Left, right. And it's biblical. It is biblical because it's Levro meanings, I'll say sinistro, and dextro, which means a positive. So again, we always go back to the spiritual. I have had patients tell me that I'm no longer coming in for dialysis because my pastor told me I'm going to be healed. Now, I understand, I believe in the miracles, but I also believe that the Most High, God, has given us a brain. If we deny that, if we deny the use of that, for us to be able to ask the question to our doctors, to our pastors, so that we can get better information to take the next step in terms of our own healing. Nutrition, it goes beyond a level of importance, and we need to understand that. We need to be able to understand what's being fed to us. I think the pastor spoke about water. If we don't hydrate, how can we enjoy anything? How can anything work in our bodies? It's really, really important to take a hold of what's around us, what's about us, and begin to learn and also share what we've learned, because we're here to share with each other and help. That's our bottom line. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for helping me this weekend. I'm one of your stress points in terms of this weekend. So thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And on the platform, you also said something about statins causing rhabdo.
Your rhabdomyolysis.
Yeah.
Dr. Aluya can speak to that. It basically, and it's subclinical, so it's not easily discerned by any kind of a test per se, but it could be something that's going on in terms of the body. Now, I believe in absolutely a statin use, but why don't we go to the natural statin use? Red yeast is a wonderful food entity, which is a natural statin. Why are we not employing that in terms of helping people who have some level of hypertension and or high cholesterol, whatever? It's a natural statin. Why are we going to a drug when we could go to a food? I believe, as you've said, and I believe you brought it forward, let food be our medicine and not the drugs, because that's where we need to be. Someone mentioned eggs. Has anyone been monitoring the number of recalls on eggs because of the salmonella? That's significant.
Right.
And we need to be aware, just need to be aware of what's around us. Very important. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you. I remember to thank Dr. Sandhu, because I have not been monitoring that since she said we cannot eat animal-based products too. Eggs was out.
Yeah.
So I have to thank her.
Am I glad I raised my own chickens and they produce eggs for me?
Do you know what? We have a brother in South Carolina who actually raises his own chickens. He has his own farm. And when we went, Dr. Cap can attest to this. He killed some chicken and gave us chicken to bring home. I'm not going to lie to you. I'd never seen chicken like that, not even back home, where the skin stuck to the flesh. There was zero fat.
Wow.
There was no single yellowing that you see in fat in that chicken. It was incredible. And he also gets his own eggs from there. If you have a farm and you're in California, Dr. Gulay, you're in California, then please raise your own chicken and send it to us. Look, you know how to package it already.
Now, I only have 2 of them, and they give me 2 eggs almost every day. So I'm not doing it for commercial.
Oh, wow. Well, you need to now blow it up to commercial. Please go on our website and go and complain over there for her to start producing organic eggs that she can send out for commercials. And chicken too. I'm reposting.
Also, I want to add that there's something that in terms of soya that you're speaking to, we have up here in the northern part, something called texturized vegetable protein, which is soy, which has been made into a meat kind of form that you can use in place of meat. It's pure soy. Now you have to find the quality one as opposed to that which is being made by a lab around the corner and down the block. But it is something that can be used. My question to maybe Dr. Aluya, maybe you, even Dr. Ajabe, in terms of the estrogenic activity that we find in soy, which women use, what's happening with it? Is it helpful? I believe it is in some cases. In some cases, we have to know our bodies so that we can eat it and enjoy it.
Dr. Aluya, do you want to answer that? Soy, estrogen in soy?
Yes.
Known fact.
Well, I'll begin with saying what he said about the statins. And that's why when I talked about the future and statins and medications, they really matter because, for instance, again, certain statins can increase the risk of rhabdomyolysis in individuals. And you cannot tell who's more prone to it or not, unless, you know, and I'll say this, if you're on a statin, meaning blood cholesterol medicine, at least maybe twice a year or 3 times a year, get screening for what they call the CPK. CPK is a breakdown of the muscles from you. So if the CPK levels are way above 3 to 4 times what the normal level is, then you begin, and especially if you have body aches and pain, you know, muscle aches and pain, and you're starting on a statin, it can occur anytime. Nobody knows when. So, but if you have that, maybe a week or 2 weeks or a month, 3 months, you start, get the CPK level. But if you haven't had a CPK, you don't have any of those symptoms, still get a CPK level in 3 months or so that at least you can tell if the numbers are rising. Because if it is, then it causes more problems. Some medications, depending on what type, will cost more than the other. However, in these individuals where CPK are level, you have a higher risk for coronary or cardiovascular events, you don't have to stop the medicine. What you do, you just switch from one to another. And that's what the studies have shown, and people tend to do well. However, the very, I don't want to say deadly, but the very severe form of long-term use of statin is they can also increase your liver enzymes. So if you're on a statin, you need to check your liver enzymes as well. And your doctor should do that, you know, and please research the medicine you're taking. A lot of the time, patients come with some of me, and like, so what medication are you taking? Some of them want to be smart, they're like, yeah, it's written out there. I'm like, yeah, I know. You tell me what you're taking. Because look, and they're like, Doc, I don't know. I'm like, are you kidding me? You put this in your mouth every day, and you don't even know the name? You understand? Just the name and the dose. You need to know all of that. You need to know all of this as much as you know what amount of money you use in your account. You know, you need to do research. We're not, you know, I'm sorry to use the word, we're not our ancestors. We're different now. We need to know these things. Now, coming to natural products that can help with cholesterol. Omega-3, huge, big deal. It really does help. It actually increases your good cholesterol, which is the HDL. Because one of the things we tend to look at is we want to decrease the LDL, which is the bad cholesterol, and make sure the HDL is higher. And fish and omega-3 tends to increase your HDL. And the higher your HDL level, the less likely you're going to have risk of, you know, heart disease or any of those, you know, bad outcomes. Now with the soy, of course, an omega again actually increases your natural hormones. So if you take omega maybe 3 times a day, I often tell this in people, take it with food, because what it does, it binds the very low molecular weight lipoprotein. If you look at the results when they give you your cholesterol, they give you lipoproteins. So it binds those very tiny ones, but help put them together to give you bigger ones, which is the HDL. And that's the joy it is. Now, if you also take the omega and you take a large amount, as it saturates your body, it bypasses other receptors to help produce your own natural hormones. So that's why for women who are postmenopausal, before I even do hormonal therapy, I do omega first. I do omega. I've used it from family members who came down with signs and symptoms of menopause, and they tend to do well. Those are all natural, because people, you know, forget that if you're on all of these meds, especially the hormonal stuff, and for women, it increases your risk of breast cancer. And if you're on hormonal therapy, please ensure that at least if you've been on it for 2 years, you need to stop. You need to give a break, because 2 years of hormonal therapy every day increases the risk of breast cancer, especially for estrogen. And these are information we need to tell our community, because we've had people in our community who develop breast cancer and die from these things. And unfortunately, we don't have enough of us to go out there to speak to us so that we hear these messages. You know, these things are really important. Now, in terms of soil, of course, there are other stuff within the soil itself, you know, that can help increase your natural gut flora, which I call the good bugs in the stomach. They're really good because God put them there for a reason. You know, I've heard some people like, oh, I want to do colonic cleansing. I want to cleanse my colon. I'm like, cleanse your colon for what? Sometimes I say, how old are you? They're like, oh, I'm 50 years old. So in 50 years, you've eaten and done all of that. So you've had the same GI tract all this while. Nothing happened to you. Why do you want to do colonic cleansing? You want to wash up the good bugs out of it? And then if you take good things away, guess what comes in? Bad guys come in, period. So they are your guards that protect your natural GI tract.
I'm sorry, Dr. Aluya. Can you please repeat what you said about breast cancer?
Oh, the risk of breast cancer increases the longer you take oral contraceptives. You know, and the studies have shown that 2 years and above, the risk goes up exponentially. So if you've been on it for about 2 years, it shouldn't be. You have to take a break. There's a call, the time they call the washout. So if you take, you know, for a year, 2 years, you have to stop and then take a break, maybe 3 months or so minimum. But some people say 2 weeks before you restart again. But of course, if you are the age where you need mammogram, please do your mammogram. Please do your colonoscopy. And for those who have not done colonoscopy because they're afraid, because of culture, we have what they call the FIT test, fecal immunofluorescent testing, FIT test. They give you, the doctor will write a script for you. They'll give you a little kit. You take it home and you put the stool in the kit and you mail it to the lab. You don't have to bring it to the doctor or to the office. You mail it to the lab. So that will screen for colon cancer as well. Now, if it comes out positive, then it's a big deal. Then you need to get a colonoscopy anyways. You understand? But if it's not positive, then the chances, again, you have to, one, look at your family history. There's a strong family history. We don't recommend strong family history of colon cancer. We don't recommend that. Just get a colonoscopy. If you've had a history of colon cancer before, no, we do not recommend that. So because guess what?
Are you talking of Cologuard?
Yeah, Cologuard, right. So
Okay.
Cologuard is based on that technology.
Because it uses your DNA. What it's talking about actually uses your DNA to see if you have colon cancer.
Right.
But then if you have it, you would then get colonoscopy.
Thank God, before Cologuard come, I used to do the CEA, you know, screening. Where for blood, you can do a CA screening.
Oh, I still do it. So
right.
But people don't want to do it and they won't do Cologuard.
Because they don't want to do it. I mean, sometimes I don't blame them. They're afraid. They've had bad outcomes from family members. So the people are afraid. But thank God for technology, we give them options. And these are the options that are out there so that we know what is available. And look, listen, the reason why you go to church is not just to go and praise God and shout hallelujah. It's to also use the net resources that are there. If you have doctors in your church and you have a question that your primary doctor can ask, call the doctor aside. Doctor, please, 2 minutes. He's in church. He's going to listen to you. You know, ask him questions as well. And then he'll be able to direct you. You understand? These are the things that we do in the community that we must begin to tell one another so that we can save ourselves, because colon cancer is really huge. The teaching before, well, in fact, let me crack a joke. In the books, and the old books, so they don't see it in young books now. In the old books, they used to say, because you know why? Colon cancer, you used to see in older people. Older people, we never saw younger people. So the books used to say, Lord, if you must take me, please don't take me by the rectum. Because it was bad. The outcomes were really, really bad. So, and then the screening was, if you're 50 years and above, yes, you need to get a colon cancer screening. But for Black people, that age has been brought down to 45. If you're age 45 and you're Black, you need to get screened and screened early, because it's getting younger and younger and younger. Why? The whole lot of reasons: GI tract, inflammation, GI tract. These things are new to our DNA. The food that we eat is new to our DNA. We only came to this country 500 years ago. It's not a long time. Others came 30,000 years ago. And there's a difference. They've adapted, they've adjusted, and the DNA have adjusted too. So let's be informed so that we take precautions. Thank you.
Thank you. Auntie Tawa, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Dr. Aluya was talking about estrogen, and he was talking about soy beans or something. But I eat tofu. Do I have to get 3 months from stop to stop eating tofu and all that kinds of stuff?
Actually, before Dr. Aluya comes up again, when Dr. Ogunleye asked the question about estrogen, Dr. Aluya went back and alluded to oral contraceptive pills. The same thing is true for postmenopausal women who are on hormone replacement therapy, whether it's estrogen, especially those without uterus that are, on estrogen or estrogen progesterone. Being on these things for too long is not a good idea. I would say after 2 years to, stop and reevaluate again. So, Dr. Ogunleye, I think I answered your question then. Dr. Aluya, so please answer. I did?
Yes.
Fantastic.
That was the question I wanted to ask.
Fantastic. Dr. Aluya's NEPA happened again. NEPA is America. NEPA sits in its office.
It's just telling me I should go home. That's what it's telling me.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, a lot of those natural inborn or inbuilt hormones are not really detrimental to your body. Your body has a way of processing those things easier and better. And the dosages are not as toxic as the level that you may get when you actually imbibe those processed ones. So no, do your normal annual check, get your mammogram, get your pap smear, get your colonoscopy, but above all, exercise, exercise, exercise. It reduces the risk of cancer. Exercise does. Look it up. Exercise reduces the risk of cancer. And I'm sorry to say this now, and I'll be very hard on our Black women. Black women do not like to exercise. I don't know why. Black from Jamaica, Black from Africa.
I'll tell you why. It's because of Black men.
I hear you.
No, seriously.
Oh, okay.
No, seriously. Dr. Aluya, you started again tonight, and you know what? Tonight you're not going scot-free. We've let you go too long.
Listen,
It's because, no, wait a minute.
I know where you're coming from.
No, you don't know. You don't know. It's because of the Black man, the Black man. The Black woman is the one that wakes up, takes care of the children, cleans the house, still works, comes back and cook and do all of that. The Black man comes and turns on the TV. The remote control is his best friend when he comes back home. And, that's it. The woman is working. Where's the time to exercise?
No, other races do that too. They take care of their children.
Where is it? Oh, no, not the same way. Guess what? Other races, Caucasians, they get out there.
But you see, the difference is, we must be very frank with ourselves. And seriously, right now, we must be really frank. One, it's not in our culture, which is a fact. It's not in our culture to get up, put on, skinny pants or whatever, and then go to the gym. That's one. So it's a culture we must learn. Two, I thought you were going to say, oh, Black men like bigger women. Yes, there's a lot of that. That's some of the notion that
they
talked about. They like bigger women. They like to have women with flesh. But that's a different story. But listen, I always say this now. It's about health. It's about health. It's not just about, looking hot and all that, but it's about health, reducing the risk of cholesterol, reducing the risk of high blood pressure, stroke, and all that. Because you want to be here for your children. You want to be here for your grandchildren and do the omogo, meaning helping to take care of your grandchildren and go visit. That's the beauty. In as much as men, we always go before you all anyway, but that's a different story.
You know why? Because we work so hard. But let me read this to you. Kentucky woman, Heather, thought this kind of thing only happened in the movies. Talk about a wild ride. On Sunday, a Kentucky mom gave birth on the side of a road while her 5 other children sat in the car 6 days ago. Wow, wow. After the delivery, she drove back home safely, and then a midwife arrived to help finish up the separation of baby from all cords. So Dr. Ephraim wrote this, and he asked, 1, he congratulates this Kentucky woman for her bravery, and secondly, he says he has no intention bringing this story up for any intent or interest. He doesn't know this lady or her belief system. To all the panelists, how can we fit this scenario into what we are discussing today?
Oh, it's not, okay, we do have culture. And if you look at—
Because this happens a lot at home. Oh.
Yes, yes. If you look at culture, for some of you who are not Nigerians, but I'll say this again, and even here too, and when a woman is pregnant, there's certain procedures and certain cultural beliefs and things that are done by the older women in the community and all that. And then when it gets to time when you give birth, especially among the Fulanis, you're not supposed to make a sound because, you know, that shows a virtuous woman or all. That's all culture. But meanwhile, I'm sorry to say, you have a Fulani woman who's giving birth in a room, in one room, and then you have another woman who is Yoruba who's giving birth in another room, and you hear the difference. One is very quiet all through, the other is screaming the roof down. It's our cultural thing, you understand? So, but outside of the culture, we also have women who, in all sincerity, look, if you live long enough, you see everything. And everything means there's everything that's possible out there, period. There are women who go on to 8 months and don't even know they're pregnant. There are women who are pregnant up to 6 months and they're still having their periods. Do you understand? And there are women who have been pregnant and they don't even know they're pregnant, and all of a sudden they think they're going to move their bowel or whatever, voila, a baby comes. How does this thing happen? You know, you expect, oh, what's wrong with the woman? What was she thinking? But fun, you don't know what mental state she was, that's one. Or what she was doing, was she using drugs or anything else? That's another story. But some people are just really normal and they have no idea they were pregnant until something happens. Or they were pregnant, but they were still trying to push on, take care of the multiple children so that they can meet the hospital, you know, and they down and it happens on the road. So multiple things that happen with that regards.
But this one cannot be that one because she has midwife already lined up. The baby came when she was driving and she took care of business.
Well, I mean, look, how in the Bible, they talked about, oh, like the Jewish women, right? You give birth in the farm and they're tied up and all that, right? They've always done that. For our grandmothers back home, gave birth in the farm, tied the cord, and went back to farming and continued to do what they were doing. You understand? But modern medicine is here and all the things were here. We no longer take those chances because of the risk of death in our women. Let me give you statistics. Maternal mortality in this country was about 19 before COVID. With COVID 2020, 2021, it went up to 23. In the state of New Jersey, per 100,000, in the state of New Jersey, it's 44 per 100,000, meaning 44 women died per 100,000 in this country. It shouldn't be like that. This is the most developed, advanced country on earth. You understand? So the risk is here. But if you look at the risk all across for Black women, it's 44, 45, as compared to like 15 or 18 or 12 for other races. That's how bad. Now, I've talked about this one again. Why are we as Black people or Black women having more issues in childbirth and women are dying? Is it just access to health, or is this just negligence, or is it just, you know, there's a whole lot of factors to it. One of the factors, and I'll tell you, look at it. I'm sure those who went to medical school remember this. the hip of a Black woman is acute. So it's like this. But the hip of Caucasians is obtuse. So an obtuse hip, it's easier for the baby to come out. Maybe because the babies are smaller, but that's just standard. And that's what's happening. So we can no longer take that risk. Now, if you take the statistics across the globe, the maternal mortality rate in Nigeria, guess what? Before COVID was 803 per 100,000. 803. We're talking about 44 here and 23 were crying. With COVID, and it went up to 1,200 per 100,000. Women dying. 803 women die every day in this country, in the world, across the globe. And if you take, that's a number we shouldn't be taking care of. It shouldn't be happening. You know, with billionaires all about doing all the crazy things that they do, but then guess what? We need to, and that's why it's important we must begin to take emphasis on health and being our brother's keepers. We must hold the line in our community. We shouldn't have no breakage in that line. If I protect you, you protect me, and together we're all protected.
Yes, thank you so much.
You went to mute.
Sorry, thank you. Damien wants to know the frequency of colonoscopy and endoscopy as part of one's general checkup. Well, colonoscopy used to be started at the age of 50, but because of, the increased incidence of cancer, Dr. Aluya have talked a lot about that. It's now recommended that it starts at the age of 45. So if you do your colonoscopy at 45, and that's in somebody who does not have family history, say somebody has a father, mother, first degree relative, sister or brother that have colon cancer at the age of 40, then they should start screening at the age of 30. We're not talking about those. We're talking about people who, don't have family history. They should start at 45. If the colonoscopy is normal, that is, there are no polyps, nothing in there, then it is repeated again after 10 years. So every 10 years, they would have a colonoscopy until the age of 70, thereabout. And then, we screen, as needed between physician and patient. We'll decide if we will continue with screening and all. But if colonoscopy is done at any stage and polyps are found, these polyps are sent to pathology. They look to decide what kind of polyp they are. Are they the cancer forming ones? Are they the whatever they are? That helps the GI doctor to decide if the patient should be screened again the next year, in 2 years, or in 5 years. And once that one is done, depending on what is found, they will decide again when one should be screened. I hope I answered your question. And then Dr. Aluya, Auntie Susan Oshifade said, she just loves your jokes and analogies for clarifications that they are very appropriate. And she says, God bless you for the wisdom. Professor Baba-Singhri said, one of the questions or maybe concerns people have about tests for cancers is that when the test comes positive, there may be no readily cure. Thus, the answer that may lead to other illnesses. Can any of us answer? Yes. We learned in medical school that you don't screen unless you have an intervention. So we don't do screenings that we don't have anything to, that we wouldn't have something to offer you if you have a positive test. Now, specifically for cancer, Dr. Aluya spent some time to talk about some of our cancer screening, mammogram, colonoscopy, I would add cervical screening, in pap smear. We recommend these screenings because if you do them and we catch these cancers early, you do fantastic. You cannot compare breast cancer that is in situ, that is in one place, that has now moved to cancer that has now moved even to lymph node in the armpit. It's a different story. The intervention will be different. And if it has moved even further than that into an organ, then it becomes more complicated to handle. Do we handle it? Yes, we still do. But people get sicker. Intervention is harsher. Chemo is never fun. Radiation therapy is never fun, you know? And so it's better to screen early, detect early. You know, I say it all the time on this platform. We do better preventing than we do treating or curing in medicine. And it doesn't matter which one. So if we screen early when you're supposed to screen and we find something, we can nip it in the bud quickly. But if we find it advanced, we still do our best to see what we can do. So we need to take away the fear factor, because wait, isn't it better to know early and cure it than to be scared and not do anything until it now becomes a problem that you can't sit home with? You will still come, present to the emergency room or to your primary care doctor, and then find out you have this thing that has advanced and intervention is more difficult. So I encourage all of us to get off the fear factor and just to do the needful so that we can do better for ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, even among doctors, I have a colleague right now who's really sick. Unfortunately, doctors are human beings too. He never had a colonoscopy. Now he's dealing with it. He found out only about a week and a half ago. And it's advanced, you know, so these things are real and it comes out in our community. And I'll give you a typical story of a young man who, this was, wow, maybe 12 years ago. He went to the ER for some other stuff. And after the ER, you know, after ER, they say follow up with your doctor. So he came and, you know, I'm at the university and I usually teach you know, residents. But on that day, I didn't have residents with me. It was one very early morning. And he came in, I was seeing him myself. So I asked this typical, he was 29 years old. I asked him the typical question. Hey, how are you? Fine. What did you go to? Oh, I had a pain in my knee and all that and all that. I think I fractured. So, and I said, okay, so how's your mom? How's your dad? Oh, I don't know much about my dad. Okay, how's your mom? My mom is dead. I'm like, oh, if your mom is dead, you're 29, so she died young. She's like, yeah, she died young. So what did she die from? Oh, you know, they said she had some stomach cancer and that's what she died from. I'm like, oh, wow, okay. But how old was she when she died? Oh, she was around 42. So I said, well, if she's 42, so you need to get screened now because it's usually 10 years before a family member who had colon cancer, you know. So I said, okay, fine. I'll give you a script. You need to get screened. You're 29, you're going to turn 30. So that puts you at risk. And I left him, you know, follow up with me. Of course, 29-year-old black brother. He never showed up. And I forgot about him. 2 years later, I was doing rounds and I walked into a room and there was this guy laying in bed with 2 tubes sticking out of his belly. And he was in the hospital. He saw me. He recognized me 2 years after. He picked up the phone. He's like, hi, doc. I said, hi, how are you? He's like, you don't remember me? He picked up the phone and called his wife. Oh, sweetheart, come and see the doctor who said I should get colonoscopy done 2 years ago and I didn't do it. He's here. And I said, so what's going on right now? He's like, man, doc, I got colon cancer and it's all over. It's impressing on my kidney. So that's one of the tubes that they put to so that his kidney can drain. And the other tube for colostomy. And he was emaciated. And at that time, it was stage 4. And there was nothing they could do. You understand? And he was 29. At this time, he was what? 31 years old. Going on 32. So these things happen and they're real. You know, and the reason why we do this, so that we can hear this information and share it out now, in our community, in our friends, in your church. When you have powerful meetings, say these things. It's true. Because I say this, look, there's an African adage that says, if you hear good news, you listen with both ears. I hope you're all listening with both ears right now, so that you can share the news as well with your family members, everybody, even those who you perceive as enemies that ask you for money all the time. You need to protect them by telling them to go do their tests, so that you don't have to spend money for burial, because that's what happens in our community, Black community across the globe, spending money on burial instead of spending money on things that we really ought to spend money on. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that personal statement or personal experience. It's important. Please, let's get all our screenings done. And you mentioned something about doctors. Physicians on this forum, they say it, physicians are the worst patients. I'm not. I have all my screenings. And I can get my doctor on the platform. So please, let's get all our screenings done. Dr. Ajagbe, I'm going to have to call on you because I didn't understand your posting. So if you please enlighten us. And Pastor Onigbinde, oh my gosh, Dr. Duyebo is appreciating you. And I see that you've seen that. Thank you so much again, for your input. Dr. Ajagbe, over to you, sir.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for the contributions. Well, what I wrote there was at the beginning. So I'm sure a lot of things have been said to kind of address what I was alluding to. The first thing I wrote there had to do with the fact that every group of people in the world had thinkers, regardless of how crude you think the culture or the group of persons, may be. In Africa, we did have, thinkers, and people were given different kinds of names. These were people who, just walking in the woods, were able to identify specific plants that they attributed medicinal, benefits to. And the problem that we had in Africa was the fact that the documentation was not done in a chronological way in order for generations to benefit, after the people that were the thinkers, the original thinkers, were able to identify these plants and pass it on to there was no chronological way of passing it on to the next generation. They had the oral tradition. We had the oral tradition, which only the initiates were able to understand what the person, the original discoverer, were able to pass on. They don't give it to everybody. Not everybody knew about certain leaves. Not everybody knew about certain roots. So that was what the first comment I was trying to make, that every culture and every group of people in the world have thinkers, every group. And so everything that we should have known in our culture that we didn't know was just because of the way information was passed from generation to generation. Now, for some people, they were fortunate to have, relatives who could actually write things down before they died, and then they can replicate some of those things. But I think things are changing presently because more people are recognizing the benefits of the plants, and it's no longer the brainwashing that went with everything that is African is evil, and everything that comes from Africa is demonic. And all of those things have to be dealt with continuously, because we now recognize that bitter leaf, knowing about bitter leaf alone could cure a whole lot of things. I mean, could prevent a lot of diseases just by eating bitter leaf. But we never knew, people didn't know that was that important herb. And so many people say, that is too bitter, I can't touch it. Or is for poor people. Now give me something sausage from Britain. Give me bacon from America. Those are the things that people are moving towards instead of what is really natural that is available in their backyard. Every plant, I can tell you, I mean, I'm not a naturopath by training, and I'm not a herbalist, but I can tell you that every single plant, regardless of whether we call it a weed or a cultivated plant, has medicinal value. Because we are ignorant of their medicinal value does not make them rubbish, because many times we just trample on them, we cut them and throw them away, and then eventually you find out that this thing is really beneficial, and then people are spending lots of money. Now, when we talk about objective approach to managing all the things that we've been talking about regarding mental health and leading on to suicide, there are other things. Everybody must, is talking about so many aspects of it, but there really is difficult to have an objective approach. There will always be some subjective elements to every decision that needs to be made. I mean, there is no legislation about how something has to be taken care of, because everything has to do with experience, and that is where we have to understand that. I think Pastor Onigbinde said that it's going to be zigzag. It's not something that is straight line. You can't just say, oh, this is the straight line way of dealing with any of these problems. We come in with all kinds of experiences, and knowledge is growing every day. I mean, there's expansion of knowledge. I mean, just alone about plants from Africa. I mean, tropical plants that the information I have gathered within the past 2 years is immense. It's unbelievable. In my own kitchen, I have powder from all kinds of leaves now from Africa. I especially request that those will be made for me, because I mean, if I go back and forth to Africa and I know these things are free there, and they are there, and they don't have pesticides, they don't have all the things that I'm worried about over here, why shouldn't I do that? So objectively, if you know what to do and you don't do it, to you it is sin. If you know that you are moving towards plant-based lifestyle, and then you cannot use the plants that you know are natural, you know they are there and they are healthy and they are organic, it's a shame. I mean, it will be a shame when anybody who then comes here and starts spending thousands of dollars to get some kind of other treatments, for something they could have prevented if they just take it, if they are taking what it is that they have access to. I want to say also something about Momo. Momo is very interesting. Momo is very rich in collagen, and collagen is what most of the companies now are using to create. I mean, they make gelatin from that. They process the cow skin to get the collagen from it, and they make serum. They say they give you serum that you buy small vial for $300. If you eat your Momo, which is healthy, you get your collagen naturally. Your body processes it, and it's using it as building blocks. Every wound healing that requires secondary intention will require collagen building block. There is no way you can avoid it. Everybody needs abundance of collagen in their system. Now, as a pathologist, I can tell you that, because every time you cut through wounds that don't heal, is because there's lack of collagen to bridge the edges of the wound. And now that we're creating artificial, lab cultivated collagen to create grafts to bridge the gap between those huge ulcers that can no longer come together by themselves, to use the allografts to bridge, to connect the edges of the wound. I can tell you, if you eat your pomo that is healthy, your body will say thank you on the long run. The only concern I have about pomo from Nigeria is the new bad attitude that is going on. I heard that some people are using formaldehyde or formalin to make their pomo that they are selling. Of course, it's going to prevent, rottenness, but they believe that it's making it to be bigger. That somehow, I don't know how that chemistry is going on, but that it looks better when they present it to sell. Formaldehyde is not good for anybody. It is what we use to embalm dead bodies. And if they use it to preserve pomo, it is dangerous. So if you are making your own pomo by yourself, please enjoy it. But if you're going to buy from the market, you have to find out how they handle and how they process their pomo. Don't get swamped because you had that collagen. Pomo is rich in collagen and you want to now load up on collagen. I can tell you those who are eating pomo, who have been eating pomo forever, look at their skin. They do not lose any elasticity in their skin. They may be poor. You may see them in the marketplace. Their skin is shiny. Their skin is smooth. They are dark and shiny because they have the building blocks for their body to keep on being healthy. Well, they will see you, the people who are in America, say, yeah, I want to be in America too. Well, they don't know what they have. But if you know, we can help them understand the benefit of what they have and they can enjoy it. We must enjoy those things ourselves. Thank you.
Prof, if all I can say is the devil is a liar. That pomo must be enjoyed. And you're right. Thank God I don't buy my pomo from anywhere else but our abattoir here. And we see how they make the pomo. They burn the hair off and then scrape it off and then cut it and give it to us. So, but thank you for elucidating on that. I'll make sure to tell my people at home to beware of where they buy their pomo.
Yes.
And you know what? Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Buleye. You're right, but isn't that a shame though, that back home in Africa, where you think you will get organic, authentic things, is where things are not that good anymore. I just saw somebody who told me that he has a farm in Nigeria and his wife actually has the chicken and egg poultry, and he has a farm, palm trees and stuff like that. So he was telling me that egg to chicken in Nigeria, in his wife's farm, is 6 weeks. And I said, how? How long did it used to take when we were growing up? He said, oh, that's months, I said, but how? He said, it's the same thing they use here in the US, they use it in Nigeria. He said, all of those fast food places in Nigeria, and he mentioned some of them. He said, they sell them the chicken. Those are the chickens that you eat there. So it's the same thing here. This is Nigeria. He just told me this on Friday, a couple of days ago. And as I asked him about his farm, about manure, because I wanted to know what he uses. He said, oh, he uses the, dung from the poultry and stuff like that they mix together. I said, that is good, on his part. But that's what's going on in Nigeria. People have to be careful everywhere now with meat, unless you are rearing yours, even back home, which is sad. So, Dr. Jagbe, on herbs, yes, there are lots of herbs that do good things, but research is important. Thank God you are a scientist. They gave us, this agbo growing up, that they will go to the market, get this leaves and that leaves and cook together, and it does something. But how much should one drink? How frequently should one eat it? And what does it actually do? You read this that it says, this plant does this. Show me research that has shown that. And you know what? Maybe we need to get together and start researching this ourselves. So that being said, Auntie Tawa asks that you please mention the names or tell us some of the plants you're talking about. If you please put that in the chat box, that would be great. To start with moringa, I know, and etifeti, or which one is that one that you always tell me about?
Awokpa.
I don't know which one that is. Awokpa. Which one is awokpa?
Please don't introduce other things. Awokpa is a different thing. I think what's the leaves that I'm talking about are things that we're already eating.
No, I understand.
That's
Can you put them in the chat box, please, so that we can take pictures, we can have them. Thank you. We appreciate that. And Professor Baba is on the roll tonight. I love it. He said there's a follow-up question then. So the question I answered about cancer, and Dr. Aluya backed that up. He said, is there a cure for cancer? Though it may be important to know, or it may be important to know. Is there a cure for cancer? Yes and no. Again, it depends on how early the cancer is found. If it's found early, it's in situ, it's in that one place, guess what? We take it out, and that's a cure. Or we take that organ out, say uterine cancer, or polyps that are going to become cancer. You know that these polyps are going to become cancer. If you take the polyps out, and you don't take the uterus out, especially when the woman is no more of childbearing age, they're not going to have any more children, those polyps will grow back. That's the natural thing they do. They will grow back, and you may then miss it. So at that point, you take out the uterus, guess what? You've cured it. When the cancer has even moved out from where they are, I know someone who is cancer-free 15 years now. In fact, I should put a book on the forum. When we're doing the cancer month, we will do that. She used diet to cure cancer, but there was one caveat. She was stage 3 when she was diagnosed 15 years ago. The cancer has spread to the liver and has spread to, I can't remember what other organ. But guess what? They took out all of those cancers where they had spread to, and she decided instead of chemo to use diet. She was offered both and she took diet. She's 15 years cancer-free. So do we have medicines that we take that will cure cancer? We have chemo and chemotherapy. We have radiation. Radiation therapy can put cancers in remission when they are needed. Some cancers, when they caught very early, don't need chemo or radiation therapy. They take them out and it's a cure. But some, after they take them out, or if they can't take them out, would need chemo or radiation therapy, sometimes to shrink the cancer first before they're taken out if they're big, whichever, or one size does not fit all. A patient with cancer will be evaluated by oncologists, and I want to say that, glory be to God, knowledge in cancer now is way better than it was even 10 years ago. I'm looking forward to the mRNA that was used to make the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. I'm looking forward to them improving them to the point where they can deliver chemotherapy into the site of cancer cell where they should go instead of all over the body. That causes, the hair loss, the nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, because chemotherapy as we have it now, when people take it, what it does is it attacks fast-growing cells, which that's what cancer is. Everybody has cancer cells in them, but if they go wacko, it's when they develop cancer. So the fast-growing cells. So you know that hair is a fast-growing cell. That's why people will lose their hair, because the medication, it does not discriminate. It targets every fast-growing cell. The GI tract, it attacks that. But, the mRNA technology started 20 years ago, and it's been studied to deliver chemo to where cancer cells are. And thank God that they started that, because it was timely to do the vaccines that we now have, the Pfizer and Moderna. But I'm looking forward to them fine-tuning it for the cancer treatments, because it would help the cancer treatment a lot, at least help people to tolerate them better. So Professor Baba, I hope I answered your question. I wanted to give Dr. Aluya a break. So I answered that one too. Did I answer your question, sir?
Somehow, yeah, but not complete, yeah. When you talk about treatment, because when people talk about treatment for cancer, I look at it, there's a potential possibility that it will come back, right? The cancer come back. People who go on, there's some studies that people who go on chemo, like can accelerate their death, and then there's the other side effects. And then there is also the end result always, I mean, I know everything's probability is, well, it might not work. And so I think those are the concerns that people have when they say you have cancer, it's like you are in a death sentence to most. And that's why I asked that question. Like you say, removing the uterus, that means if you remove the uterus for the woman, is she ever going to get pregnant? You say she will not get pregnant, or she still get pregnant?
Okay, I said that that was an example of somebody who is no more of childbearing age. Mm-hmm. They don't want any more children, or they have reached menopause, so they're not going to have any more children. So they really don't need the uterus anymore. If that kind of person has a polyp that is cancerous, then it makes sense to just take it out. Take the whole thing out, and it's a cure. Again,
is there a determined cause of cancer?
No, not necessarily.
Okay. That's my question.
Give an example.
Yeah.
So they can have full-blown cancer, not polyp. So if they are not of childbearing age, again, you take out the uterus because they have cancer. If they are of childbearing age, they have not had any children, or they want children, the gyn-onc will then evaluate that patient to see if they can take out the cancer, effect some kind of treatment, and still preserve the uterus so they can carry a baby. It has to be it has to be patient by patient basis to make these decisions. There's no, or to answer these questions, there's no one size fits all. And again, I'll repeat, do your screening test so that if there's a problem, it is found early. If it's found early, you have a better chance at surviving and not going through hell. I'm sorry, I don't have sympathy when you have the chance to screen, you don't screen. I tell you every visit, and I've had a patient like that please do your colonoscopy. Please do your colonoscopy every year. And I document it in the chat. And then patient walked into my clinic, has had colon cancer that has metastasized to the bone in the back, and she had a fracture in the backbone. She could hardly walk into the clinic. And at that point, she died of that cancer. That was an unnecessary death. So, Professor, let's stop concern people have. You can have concern and die an ugly death. Cancer death is not a fun death. Or you cannot have the concern and just screen. These are screening tests. And if there's a problem, it can be intervened. You can intervene early. I don't know how else to answer, but I'm going to have Dr. Bill Dr. Bill, go ahead, sir.
I think he's me.
Yes.
Professor, one of the things which was reported, this is shortly after 9/11, when people returned back to work, and maybe a year and a half later, there was a uptick in terms of prostate cancer in men who were working in surrounding buildings where the building collapsed. Now they attributed that to the air, which was still not being cleaned properly, and these people were working there over a period of time. So there are instances where there might not be any genetic things going on in terms of the family, but those who put themselves in harm's way in terms of working in conditions like that, it does present a problem also. And I'd even say those who basically deal with farmers who are working with tobacco over many years, they somehow, some way, they didn't have to smoke, but they absolutely started coming down with cancers which were related to the employ of tobacco. Again, Dr. O's point is it is all subjective. There's no rhyme or reason why John gets sick and Mary doesn't, or Mary gets sick and John doesn't. It's about the body, and it's about the body at that time, which is now experiencing the adulterates, which are in the air around them, or in the water and or the food that they eat. So the understanding, and I think it's been pointed out by Dr. Aluya and also Dr. Ajibe, is that we attempt to make sure that what we are doing, the steps we take every day, has some level of nutritive understanding. So we are doing something which is helping the body every day. And it just doesn't happen overnight. So I will also say that the treatment that's being done, and I think Dr. O and Dr. Aluya can speak to this completely, is that the chemo and the radiation, we'd like to believe that it is thorough, complete, and it's done right. But there are no perfections in terms of what we do. We do what we can in terms of helping people heal and get better. So the idea I can leave you with is every step you take today and tomorrow, just see if you do everything right nutritionally to maintain the body, so when it is subject to an environment which is dangerous, it will be able to take care of itself.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that awesome input. So much appreciated. Again, please, let's screen. It's screening test. It doesn't mean you have cancer or you're gonna get this. No, when you screen, it doesn't mean you're gonna have it. You're looking to see, do I have it? And if I do, let's fix it right away. So please don't be scared. Let's remove the fear tactics, the fear component. Thank you. So I'm going to throw this back to these panelists to see if anyone else have a comment before I go back to Dr. Aluya to conclude for us. Our panelists, Pastor Onigbinde, Dr. V, Prof. Baba.
Thank you.
Do you realize something? It's almost 10 o'clock. How? Pastor, 2 minutes.
Well, maybe I'll pass it to Professor Baba.
Okay, Dr. Aluya. 2 minutes. Wow. Time flies when you're having fun.
I know.
Subject. Yeah.
That's what they say. When you're having fun, the theory of relativity, when you're having fun, time flies. So, but we thank God for everybody and for those who've been on and stayed on till the end. We do this because we want to get our community informed. Information is power, they say, and once you have that power, what are you going to do with it? you make yourself better, you make your environment better, you make your family better, you make your community better, and you make your world better. And that's the primary aim and honors that God has instructed us here on earth. So as we do what we do, we leave legacies behind, big, beautiful feats that are well-defined and structured, so that those who come behind us can take what we've done to a higher and better level, so that our world will all be better for all of us. And I must say again, thank you and God bless you.
Amen, amen. But before we leave, quick too, what about Shaki? I don't know. Does he have collagen? And can you get collagen from CMOS? Dr. Bill, can you get collagen from CMOS?
Yes, I will say to you that.
Did you say yes?
From Shaki, you have smooth muscles.
No, can you get collagen from Shaki?
Yes, you can.
That's it. That's it. Now, CMOS, can you get collagen from CMOS?
What is CMOS?
You are muted. CMOS, it's gelatin-like.
I wouldn't call it CMOS. No, I wouldn't call it collagen. It's collagen-like. And yes, it does. It is an item which has the ability to absorb impurities and to help the body. And in doing that, it's also has some healing effect. So absolutely, it's been used in many ways. CMOS, men use it because it's supposed to improve their virility. So absolutely.
Thank you so much. I have some in my refrigerator. How long does it last in the refrigerator?
It depends on how good your refrigerator is. You haven't frozen it, have you? It hasn't been too cold, because sometimes when you freeze a gelatin-like substance, it coagulates and the water is released from it. And then you are separating it from its natural form. Now, whether in its coagulated form, is it as healthy? I have not had any studies or things about that, but I will venture to say that anything that separates has changed, and in changing it has also changed its value.
Thank you
so much. Like, excuse me, please. Is it the same thing like a jellyfish?
No.
No.
It's not. No.
It's pure herb, and we use it in drinks. We put it in drinks.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do you call it? Sorry.
Irish moss.
It's in the chat box. CMOS. SEAMOSS.
Okay, thank you.
So with that, we're going to conclude Medical Mondays with Dr. O for tonight. Thank you so very much. I mean, this was a robust conversation, and can't wait till next week when we get to our next topic. And thank you so much for our awesome panelists who have been coming every week and been imparting, knowledge into us. We appreciate you, and we look forward to next week. So until we see you again, please stay safe and have a blessed night.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.